Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, it's Narian, and so today we are going to talk about Starfield because, well, yesterday Bethesda released the timeline for the game, and so it gives us a better understanding of the adventures that we're going to experience in the game, as well as the background of those adventures too. Now, this is a timeline that you can find on the website. I'll put the link in the description down below. It's not really easy to find. Actually, you type, for example, Starfield timeline, you're not going to find it. Unfortunately, I tried it on Google, it didn't work. You really have to go to Bethesda.net and then find it out. So, what's going on there in Starfield? What is the story? Well, the earliest date that we find in the timeline is 2050, and that is when the humanity first arrives on Mars. And apparently, they said that by 50 years after that first landing on Mars, humans are living in space. So it really seems that going to Mars was a stepping stone to living in space. Now we're moving on to a century later, 2156, which is when humans finally arrive in Alpha Centauri, which is, as we know, 4.37 light years away from Earth. Now, probably by that time, humans either found a way to go faster than light or found a way to go at a fraction that is large enough to go to another star. Maybe it took 20 or 30 years, but it's still feasible within the lifespan of a human being, especially if there are ways to freeze people. But anyway, that's another topic for another day, right? In 2159, so 3 years after that, the United Colonies are established. And then 1 year later is when New Atlantis is founded and becomes the official capital city of the United Colonies in 2161. So 1 year later, New Atlantis, of course, is the big city that we'll be going to on planet Jameson. Next, in 2167, Cheyenne is settled by Solomon Coe, who founds the first settlement, Aquila City, which is the other main settlement in the game. So there are basically two rival factions in Starfield, right? The United Colonies, and also later we'll talk about it, the Freestar Collective. They were at war before the game starts, and apparently in the game they are in an uneasy truce. So it's also going to be interesting to see how this is going to play out as we play the game. In 2188, Coe invites Volley to join Cheyenne in a new alliance, the Freestar Collective. The Freestar Collective is officially formed in 2189. Now, Volley, for those of you who don't know, is where you have Neon City. Now, by that time, Neon was probably not a pleasure city. It was probably like a fishing harbor or fishing city. But then they found those fish that had basically act like a drug, and then they became specialized in fishing that kind of fish, so that people go there for the narcotics. In 2194, the United Colonies positioned the star station called the Clinic in orbit around Deepala in the Narian system. The unaffiliated people of the nation system see this as a United Colonies attempt to expand their borders and demand the United Colonies to remove the clinic. When the UC refuses, the people of Narian vote to join the Freestar Collective, who mobilize to protect the system in 2195. In response to the Freestar mobilization in 2196, the UC moves a fleet into Narian system, and the Freestar responds in kind. The Narian War begins. So that's basically the first war between the Freestar Collective and the United Colonies. You're going to see that there's going to be another one that is not the war that affects the narrative in the Starfield story that we're going to be playing. The Narian War drags on in 2216 as public sentiment here sours. Finally, the Treaty of Narian is signed, and the UC and Freestar Collective in 2216. So that's basically 20 years after the start of the war. So it's a pretty long war actually here. Finally, the conflict ends in 2216, and the term settled system is formalized in the treaty. So is it because they're settled and they're not going to be at war anymore, or is it because they've been settled by humanity? I guess that it's kind of both, I suppose. In 2221, the Freestar Rangers are founded as an elite protective and investigative force dedicated to serving all citizens of the Freestar Collective. That is a faction that will definitely be able to join in Starfield. In 2275, the Constellation is formed by Sebastian Banks. Original members include Chloe Bao, an accomplished physicist, Aja Mamasa, the youngest member and Sebastian's protege, maybe she's the girlfriend too, we don't know, Darius Andres, a botanist and specialized in xenoflora, Bernadette Laurent, wealthy heiress and adventurer. There's always a financier in Constellation because those things are expensive, right? Evardo Gil, former smuggler, and Kadri Toma, biologist and physician. The lodge is built in New Atlantis to serve the needs and people of Constellation for the generations to come. In 2305, now we're getting closer to the story here because the story begins in 2330, so that is 25 years before the story starts, and Barrett joins Constellation. So I mean, in the trailers he looked like a middle-aged man, so he was probably a young man by that time. I'm pretty impressed to see that he actually lasted for that long and stayed in Constellation for such a long time already, so kind of an old-timer actually. In 2307, the Freestar Collective begins farming on the planet of Vesta in the Lunara system. By 2308, the United Colonies claim that by establishing a colony on the fourth star system, the Freestar Collective has violated the Treaty of Narian. Diplomatic talks break down and the UC lays siege to Vesta, killing anyone who stayed behind or was brought in to defend it. The Colony War officially begins. So that is the war we're talking about here. And it's the war that just ended before the start of the game. In 2310, Constellation comes into possession of the first artifact and tucks it away in the Constellation archive. So there we go, actually, 5 years after Barrett joins, and it's actually quite a new thing for Constellation to be collecting those artifacts. They've basically been recently found, and they're still not so sure about what those are. In 2311, after several years of conflict, the Colony Wars effectively comes to an end with the Battle of Cheyenne, as a flotilla of civilian and military Freestar Collective ships takes down the major ships of the UC Navy using hit-and-run tactics. By 2315, the UC Vanguard is founded as a part of the UC response to the Freestar Collective's use of civilian ships during the Colony War. So basically, they've learned from them, and that is their response. It's called the Vanguard, and the Vanguard is the UC's own civilian navy, relying on civilians using their own ships, who pledged to protect the United Colonies and its interests. Basically, by the way, we will also be able to join the Vanguards in the game. I guess it would be interesting also to find where our allegiances are and how we are going to be committing or maybe betraying to those factions here. The ultimate reward for this service is citizenship of the United Colonies. Apparently, it's not something that's automatic. Are we going to be a citizen already, or we will have to earn that citizenship? And what will the perks of this citizenship be? That's also going to be something interesting to find out in the game. In 2319, Sarah Morgan, whom we saw a lot in the trailer, becomes the youngest head of the UC Navigators Corps, though it's a short-lived position as the division is shut down in 2320. Cast adrift but still eager to put her training for good use, Morgan joins Constellation. Next, in 2321, Walter Stroud, co-owner of Stroud Ekman, one of the Settle System's premier starship manufacturers, joins Constellation and becomes the primary financial backer. So that's also the guy that we saw in the trailer. In 2322, former Crimson Fleet pirate Vladimir Stoll joins Constellation. But I thought that the only way out is death. So I wonder if he'll still be in the game and if he's still going to be linked to Crimson Fleet. They say former here, but who knows, right? Anyway, in 2325, 5 years before the start of the game, Sarah Morgan becomes the acting chair of Constellation. Also, at the same year, theologian Matteo Cotry joins Constellation. 1 year later, Barrett is still there, finds the original artifact in the Constellation archives, and knows it must be special. Maybe it spoke to him, since this artifact apparently seems to be speaking to people. On the same year, after a month of correspondence with Sarah Morgan, graduate student and gifted scientist Noel is invited to join Constellation. In 2327, Freestar Ranger Sam Coe and his daughter Cora also joins Constellation. Seems like a great place to be. Lots of people are joining Constellation in 2023-28. Andrea also joins Constellation. And on the same year, Barrett convinces Constellation to purchase Star Station L868 to modify it and to become a deep space scanner nicknamed the Eye, which we also saw in a trailer. So that station also belongs to Constellation. And then in 23-30, Starfield begins, and that is the start of the game. And guys, it's probably going to be my last Starfield video until Starfield finally starts in 2 weeks, and I'm promising you guys there will be a lot of Starfield content when that is happening. But anyway, guys, that is all for today's video. Let me know in the comment section down below. Are you excited about Starfield? Will you be playing in early access? What kind of gameplay are you looking forward to the most in Starfield? I want to know everything out there. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I've been Narian. I wish you a wonderful day. I'll see you guys in the next one.